Wonderful. I can see some people joining. Thank you very much for jumping on Frustrated with Frameworks. We're going to wait for a few more and then we will kick off. In the meantime, you can look at the lovely slide that we've got to kick off with. Just for quick introductions, my name's Adam from Core to Cloud, working in the marketing department, and beside me on the screen, I'll show you to my left or to my right, we have Thomas Fisher, senior consultant from Certitude.
Hi, everybody.
Cheers. Lovely. So yeah, thank you all very much for joining. We'll be kicking off in just a moment. Just to let you know, this session will also be recorded, and we're more than happy to send you all the recording after. If you've got to jump off for any reason, it's not a problem. We'll send you the recording after, as well as a PDF of the slide deck as well, so you can take all the information with you. Wonderful stuff. We'll give it another 30 seconds, and we'll take it away. Hope everybody's comfortable. If you need a cup of tea, now's the chance. A glass of water, whatever you like. I should have thought about that actually. A brew would have been a good idea. How about you, Tom? Thomas, apologies.
I have water next to me just in case.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm going to wait for my little clock to turn to 33 UK time, and then we will kick off. There we go. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll crack on now. Anyone that joins, it's fine. Again, like I said, we'll send out the recording. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining Core to Cloud and Certitude today for the Frustrated with Frameworks webinar. My name is Adam from Core to Cloud, and beside me is Thomas, senior consultant from Certitude. But you'll hear a lot from him in the webinar he will be presenting. First things first, you're always learning when you join a webinar with us. So straight away, we're taking you through the DORA and the NIS2 frameworks today, all the requirements that you'll need to satisfy those. And as some keen beans might have noticed straight away, the DORA and NIS2 are in fact acts, not frameworks. So we're learning already, and that's why we need this webinar. So thank you very much again for joining. Quick introduction to Core to Cloud. We're a cybersecurity managed services and solutions provider based in the UK. We work based out of an 18th century castle in the Cotswolds. So like everything we do things a little bit differently. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and I really hope you enjoy and you find some serious value off of this webinar. Over to you, Thomas.
All right, thanks for the introduction. I'll take over. So as already mentioned, we will have a talk today about NIS2 and DORA. The agenda will be generally giving an overview of the objectives of either NIS2 and DORA, also which organizations are affected by either of them, and what does this actually mean for UK companies. Further, we'll have a brief comparison between DORA and NIS, and I'll give a short overview of how the ISO 27001 covers sections of both of these. So let's start with NIS2, Network and Information Security Directive. So on the 16th of January 2023, the NIS2 directive went into effect, which means by 17th of October 2024, member states need to implement the NIS2 into their local law. Since it's a directive, local authorities need to put them into a local law first before it takes into effect. Affected companies then have 1 day, more or less, to get compliant with the directive, which means on the 18th of October 2024. Depending on how quick the national member states actually put out the local law, the companies have more details about when and what they need to actually be compliant with. This will be quite the challenge for many companies. Therefore, affected companies should start and act now to start preparing. The main objectives of the NIS2 directive are to have risk management measures in place. There will be increased reporting requirements, and the responsibility and accountability of the top management increases. Some must-haves. Companies must have concepts for risk analysis and security for information systems. They need to have policies and processes in place to manage security incidents. Same for business continuity and crisis management. Companies also need to manage supply chain security, which includes ensuring third parties have security measures to protect their data, have continuous monitoring of third-party compliance and security requirements, have an information register of all their third-party suppliers, vendors, and contractors, and their third parties. Conduct risk assessment for each third party. Ensure that contracts with the third parties include clauses that require them to comply with relevant regulations like NIS2, GDPR, DORA, just for an example. Companies must also ensure that they have audit rights on their third parties, probably done by contracts. Further, must-haves are security measures for ICT acquisition, development, and maintenance. Companies must have concepts and procedures for assessing the effectiveness of risk management measures. Cyber hygiene and have regular cybersecurity trainings for employees and management. Cryptography and encryption where necessary. Human resource security and access control concepts. And they must consider where multi-factor authentication is necessary to protect systems and data. This can be achieved by implementing either state-of-the-art measures or controls, or using known norms to improve their cybersecurity resilience. This should be done appropriately depending to the risk and proportionally to the implementation costs.
Also, just worth mentioning, I forgot to say at the start, there is a question panel on your screen as well. If you've got any questions at all throughout the webinar, don't hesitate to fire them in the question box. We'll also leave a little bit of time for any at the end as well. Thank you. Sorry, Thomas.
No worries, thanks. So which organizations are actually affected by NIS2? NIS2 affects all entities that provide essential or important services to the European economy and society, including companies and suppliers. There are certain thresholds to keep in mind to determine under which category a company falls under, additionally to the sector. Here you can see a list of entities which fall under the category essential and important. Larger companies with the size of 250 or more employees, or an annual turnover of 50 million or a balance sheet of 43 million fall under the essential category. Slightly smaller companies with the size of 50 or more employees and annual turnover of 10 million or balance sheet of 10 million will fall under the important category. As you can see, there is a list of which companies actually fall under which categories. For example, essential entities fall under energy, transport, public administration, and there's one special case, the digital infrastructure. Digital infrastructure is a bit special because it depends on the service the company provides and its size, if it counts as an essential or an important entity. Important entities, interesting cases are like waste management falls under the category. Some digital providers. Yeah. So what does this actually mean for UK? Given that the UK is no longer bound by the EU legislation and will not be implementing NIS2, there will be differences between EU and UK. There will be changes, though, in the existing cybersecurity laws in the UK. For example, in UK will expand the type of in-scope digital service providers. This includes providers that are business to business, focused on IT services, reliant on network and information systems, and digital service providers providing regular management and support, active administration and or monitoring of IT systems, infrastructure and network and or security. A broader range of incidents need to be reported to the regulator. NIS2 contains more demanding requirements for reporting of significant incidents. Data centers not regulated as cloud providers will be exempt. The regulator can include specific small digital service providers to be in scope if they're deemed essential to UK critical service or national security. There will be a risk-based approach, though, to regulating digital services based on how critical providers are to providing essential services. Like the GDPR, the NIS2 directive establishes that in the instance an organization is not established in the European Union but offers services within it, the organization shall designate a representative who is established in one of the EU member states where the services are offered. The representative will fall under the jurisdiction of the EU member state it resides in. The representative is responsible to make sure their service is NIS2 compliant. In case a representative is not designated, legal action can be taken against the organization by an EU member state in which the services are provided in. The NIS2 directive will generalize the extraterritorial scope to all covered entities. Previously, NIS1 only covered digital service providers in this aspect. If the organization provides services in more than one EU member state, it will fall under the jurisdiction of each of these member states. This includes, for example, the reporting obligations, which are dictated by the directive. Therefore, UK organizations should assess their cybersecurity compliance obligations, especially in case they are a supplier to an EU organization. That was a brief overview of NIS2. Let's jump over to DORA. DORA stands for Digital Operational Resilience Act. As you can see in the timeline, DORA was put into force by January 2023. And companies now have 24 months, so 2 years, to get compliant with all the requirements DORA requires. As you can see in the timeline 2024, there will be further RTS and ITS, which will be released. These are more specific documents with implementation details, which go into a higher level of detail, giving the companies more information to work with on what they actually have to implement. Some of these have already been released. There are more to come.
Sorry, Thomas, we just got a couple of questions here, which I'll pitch to you. So we've asked thoughts on why cloud providers will be exempt from NIS2, and does this also include SaaS offerings?
Good question. I have to admit, I do not know exactly for whatever the reason. I would need to have to take that with me to research on the matter a little bit before I give a specific answer.
No problem. Thanks for asking that one, Brandon. We will look into that and we'll get back to you as well with a complete answer. And secondly, as well, asked by Russell, what about a finance company that has less than 250 staff or the £50 million turnover?
A financial entity which will not fall under NIS2 will definitely fall under DORA. So companies or especially financial companies, will be regulated by DORA and NIS2. But in a later state of the presentation, I'll go into what that actually means, because the DORA is a lex specialis to NIS2, and I'll explain that in a little bit. I hope that answers the question for now. Exactly, we'll get to it.
Absolutely, yeah. Cheers, carry on.
Right. Good. Coming back to the DORA objectives. So DORA aims to ensure that the European financial sector is able to maintain operational stability in the event of a major disruption. The core objective is to prevent and mitigate cyber threats and establish a unified network through the EU for the effective and comprehensive management of cybersecurity and ICT risks in financial markets. Again, coming to the same structures before, to have the must-haves, these can be seen as requirements applicable to financial entities. These are information and communication technology, ICT risk management, reporting of major ICT-related incidents, and notifying on a voluntary basis significant cyber threats to the competent authorities. Reporting of major operational or security payment-related incidents to the competent authorities by financial entities. Digital operational resilience testing. This, for example, is penetration testing or testing of business continuity and service continuity plans. Information and intelligence sharing in relation to cyber threats and vulnerabilities, and measures for the sound management of ICT third-party risks. Also, topic-specific contractual arrangements between ICT third-party service providers and financial entities, and rules on cooperation among competent authorities and rules on supervision and enforcement by competent authorities in relation to all matters covered by DORA. Which organizations are affected by this? Generally, about 22,000 financial companies and ICT service providers throughout Europe. or the European Union, sorry. Some examples, you have a list here in front of you, but interesting. Credit institutions, obviously, payment institutions, investment firms, interesting, also crypto service providers. They're pretty new to that one. It would be interesting how they fell on this. Managed companies, reinsurers, intermediaries, but also crowdfunding service providers. And of course, essential third-party service providers are affected by this. Again, what does it mean for UK companies? Many topics of DORA covers already apply to financial services companies operating in EU and UK. But DORA puts more emphasis on the ICT and cyber resilience than current UK operation resilience regulations. UK entities will need to determine if they fall in the scope of DORA based on their types of financial market activities in case those take place in the EU jurisdiction. The recommendation is to assess the additional requirements which need to be addressed by the DORA regulation by performing an initial gap analysis and maturity assessment. UK-based and other international financial organizations can be subject to DORA requirements if they operate in the EU, similar to the NIS2. Third-party ICT-related service providers outside the EU are subject to DORA requirements as soon as they are entered into contractual arrangements with financial entities covered by DORA. These providers, if designated by DORA as critical providers, have requirements to set up a subsidiary in the EU within 12 months of the designation. While there will be no requirements to process data only locally in the EU, DORA lays down the EU supervisory authorities can conduct inspections outside of the EU if necessary. The European supervisory authorities, together with the European Council and NIS, are preparing a centralized EU hub for major ICT-related incidents. Their financial entities can report cybersecurity incidents and other relevant information to. Therefore, again, like NIS2, UK organizations should assess their cybersecurity compliance obligations, especially in case they are a supplier to an EU organization. One second. So, next few slides will be a brief comparison between the DORA and NIS2, and a slide on how the ISO 27001 covers sections of both of them. This is a short summary of what we talked about before. The NIS2 is a directive, which means the directive needs to be put into local law first before it gets into effect. And the member states have time until the 17th of October 2024 for the NIS2. The DORA, on the other hand, is a regulation, which means that it is put into effect immediately, more or less. But companies have a little bit more time here. Companies must comply by the 17th of January 2025. Both the NIS2 directive the NIS2 directive harmonizes the global level of cybersecurity across the EU, and the DORA regulation aims to strengthen the digital operational resilience of the financial sector. Both the NIS2 and the DORA allows member states' authorities to hold organization managers personally liable if gross negligence is proven after a cyber incident. Now, coming back to the question we had before, the DORA is a lex specialis for the NIS2. This means that companies that would fall under both NIS2 and DORA will be audited according to DORA regulation and not the NIS2. Because of DORA taking effect after NIS2, companies most likely will not be audited for either in between the time gap as of about, a little bit. Now, for the penalties for each of them, it's always an interesting topic. For the NIS2, it's pretty clear. It's stated in the directive. Essential entities have penalties up to at least 10 million or 2% of global turnover. For important entities, at least 7 million or 1.4 of global turnover. So if you compare it to the GDPR, it's a little bit less, still quite a lot. The DORA is not as specific in what it maintains. It does not have a monetary amount, which is specified in the regulation, but it specifies in the regulation that what member states can do to maintain or what member states are authorized to mandate appropriate measures, including financial, to ensure that financial companies continue to comply with the legal requirements. So there's no monetary amount specified, but the member states have the power to mandate if necessary. So how does the ISO 27001 compare to DORA and NIS? I'm not going to go over all of this information. You will get the slide deck, but you can be aware that there are security measures, incident reporting, risk assessment, accountability, record keeping. All these topics on the left side somehow are managed by the ISO. But keep in mind that the ISO 27001 roughly only covers 70% of the requirements of NIS2 and DORA. NIS2 and DORA have much higher and more specific requirements for the companies which are affected. And also, please be aware that the audits for NIS2 and DORA will be way more technical as well and go into a lot more detail and depth than it is the case in the ISO certification process. Okay, I hope that gave a brief overview of NIS2 and DORA and a comparison between both.
Yep. So I'll jump in there, Thomas. So what I'm going to do at this time is introduce my colleague Chris Downs, who's just appeared in front of you. Chris is our head of private sector at Quarter Cloud, and he's going to take you through the process of actually preparing yourselves for these frameworks and how Quarter Cloud and Certitude can help.
So yeah, in line with Certitude, what they have kindly done is offered some free professional services, an hour of which to offer to everyone that's attended today, both customers and prospects alike. The understanding is to make that a bit more bespoke for you all to ask. I mean, some of the questions that you've asked already have been brilliant, but to ask some questions in parallel to what you're looking to achieve, where you are and where you need to be and compliant to whether it be DORA, NIS2 or whatever, moving into next year. So the team and I will all be getting in contact with you after, as you're happy to via email or for the phone call. If not, please feel free to reach out to us in person, and we will get some time in the diary with Thomas and his team to, like I said, bespokely do a bit of professional services for you around where you are in comparison to where you need to be, and if there's anything that Certitude and Quarter Cloud can do moving forward to support you, then obviously, you know, from a consultative perspective, that's what we do, be it a customer or a prospect. So we've got these four little stages down here that Thomas can probably take you through in a little bit more detail, from understanding and DORA and NIS2 to the implementation piece. So Thomas, I wonder whether you wanted to take them through this slide in a little bit more detail. But yeah, guys, we'll reach out to you there afterwards, and if you're interested in a bespoke one-to-one session with the team around the gap analysis or a project plan or anything we can do to support here, it aligns perfectly to what Quarter Cloud and Certitude do from a consultative aspect. So anything that we can do to be as help, please make sure we take advantage of it.
Yeah, thanks. So jump back to give a short explanation of the slide. More or less what we offer customers is to help them understand what is DORA, what is NIS2, and have some detailed information and discussion, also just as a sparing partner. But our focus is definitely to help customers with a gap analysis of what do they have and where they need to go for each of the topics. For this, we have created gap analysis documents already. Then we are willing to discuss a project plan, how, so resulting out of the gap analysis, we create a project plan on how do we get the company to where they need to be. And then we, of course, also help with the implementation, meaning we support or write policies, we do penetration testings, we have quite an extensive portfolio of what services we offer, which are relevant for the NIS2 and DORA. Yes, so then in the slide deck, you have some information about our Certitude Consulting and some contact information. And yes, thank you for attending. And if there are some questions, I hope I can answer them. I'll do my very best. I don't see any questions in the chat though, Adam, so I'm not sure if that's a problem.
Now with the opportunity, any questions on what we've just seen, we'd be more than happy to answer them now. Thanks very much for your presentation, Thomas. It was really enlightening. Alternatively, of course, you can contact us or Certitude at any time to answer any of your questions at all. But if there's any at the moment, feel free to drop them in the question box and we'll get to them now. If not, we'll send you all the recording and the PDF. We'll give that a second. I mean, from my perspective, from what DORA would apply to the vast majority and NIS2 would only apply to the ones that meet the size requirements?
I would put it the other way around. The DORA really focuses on financial institutions. So from the numbers point of view, it was like 122,000, which will apply to DORA. And I think for NIS2, it's around 150,000 for NIS2 in the EU region. So NIS2 is very specific to all kinds of companies who provide some digital services. And DORA really focuses on the financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, as the list was there.
Okay, that's great. Well, guys, we'll call it there. Thank you very much for joining us once again. We've been Core to Cloud and we've been with Certitude. We would love to hear any feedback, so do not hesitate to get in touch with us at all. Thanks again for joining, and hopefully we'll speak to you all very soon.
Thanks as well.
Thanks again, Thomas. Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye,
nice
everyone.
day. Bye.
I hope I'm not left here just talking to you all. I believe someone in the background is going to end the webinar. Alternatively, you can have a chat with me.